I'm in Iceland. I've rented myself a camper van for the next 8 days. And my intention is to see how far I can get, how much I can see, and how many photographs I can take. Don't tell anyone, but I brought a view camera with me. So stick around and see how that turns out.
Visiting Iceland has been high on my list for a couple years now, and last fall I had a window of opportunity. I had been researching locations throughout Iceland for quite a while and had a pretty good idea of what I wanted to see, so I booked my tickets, packed my bags, and off I went. The views from the plain over eastern Greenland were incredible, as the morning sunrise underlit the clouds, bathing the land underneath them in glowing morning light. It's hard to travel to another country without at least some sort of expectation of what you're going to see there. But although we hadn't even reached the ground yet, as I stared out over the landscape from the air, I knew already that this wouldn't be the last time I'd make this approach. First order of business was to pick up my rental van, and then it was off to Reykjavik, because no trip to Iceland is complete without a visit to the capital and the famous church. The church isn't the only thing to see in the area. I also walked around downtown looking for interesting buildings and the colorful painted roadways, including the well-known Rainbow Street. Then it was time for a coffee and some last-minute YouTube work while I had Wi-Fi before heading out on the Keflavik peninsula to do some location scouting. To my disappointment, I had arrived in Iceland not even 2 weeks after the most recent volcanic eruption had gone silent. But driving through the area next to the site, I was amazed at just how empty and quiet it was, when just a week or two earlier, the entire area was flooded with people witnessing the event. I'd had a good day, and I was feeling excited about the week ahead, but the sun was getting low, and it was time to find a campsite for the night. Campgrounds are available all over Iceland. They're really reasonably priced, and many of them have showers, common areas like this one, where you can cook, socialize, and generally get ready to tuck in for the night. While planning this trip, I figured that the camper van accommodation plan would be a more adventurous and economical way to see the country and stay flexible so I could be close to my shooting locations. The van I rented was small, but it was perfect for one and had everything in it that I needed. So after dinner and a nice hot shower, I crawled in for the night and got some good sleep, because in the morning was the start of a big day.
I'm at Seljalandsfoss right now trying to shoot with 5D Mark IV on digital. Could be near impossible on film, I think. There's a lot of people, so I may have to do some clone work to get them out of the shot, but it's also just a total drenching. I'm shooting with my 16 to 35, going wide, doing a vertical comp right now. Shooting kind of sideways on the waterfall right now, just getting kind of Can't quite get to the very top. I'm under a cliff face here. I'm getting a call of water coming down and landing in the pool, the river in front, and then just getting all the mist that's going off here. It's kind of helping me kind of mask all the people that are there. There's a lot of really brightly colored jackets and stuff, so I think I'll still have to do some work to remove that. Or I won't, we'll see. But I'm bracketing my exposures right now because I have to be fast, because I'm getting just soaked here in the front of my lens elements, getting completely hit with water droplets. I'm at FA 1/25, and with the bracket that puts me a stop and a third above and a stop and a third below, because there's a lot of highlights in the water. I want to make sure that I don't blow anything out and I get enough shadow detail. Yeah, there's just a ton of compositions around this waterfall, so I think I'm gonna keep moving around. I've kind of done the trail that goes underneath it and around it, and here I am on the northern side of it right now. So I'm gonna head out towards the river and see if I can maybe find a shot that's looking up into the waterfall. It might be kind of cool too. Beautiful location, pretty popular. Yeah, I can see why. See, they got this down. You'll get a shower under a waterfall, and then there's a nice little cafe. They'll sell you coffee afterwards. Perfect. So I'm playing around with this waterfall scene here on the digital right now on the 5D Mark IV. We've got a wider view, which kind of includes the cliffs, and there's a little bit of atmosphere from all of the water, that's vapor that's coming up from the waterfall. So I'm including the sky, even though it's pretty white. There's a lot of dynamic range in this scene because of that. So I've had to bracket about 2 stops in order to make sure I get enough detail in the foreground with all the dark volcanic rocks, also in the sky, because there are some clouds up there. It's not completely white, so I don't want to blow out the sky, otherwise I'll lose all that sky interest. I'll have to darken it down in post in order to get a little more drama and mood of it. But with the natural water vapor in the air, I think that'll turn out pretty well. I love the greens in this shot, the way they stand out against the super dark volcanic rock background. It's just absolutely beautiful. So what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to make sure I get my shutter speed timed right so that the falls look the way I want it to. But there's some nesting birds up on these cliffs, and they're flying around. So I've opened up my shutter, increased my ISO, and I'm taking faster frames here, or faster shutter speed frames, to try to capture the birds, try to freeze them in flight so that I can add those details in later too. I like it when they kind of come up and they bank and they show their wings, and that's what I'm trying to capture because it looks really good. I'm happy with this wider shot. It's just including some foreground rocks leading up into the falls, but I think now I'm gonna go explore some compositions on the river that's coming down from the falls and try to get closer to the water and try to include that as foreground interest. This is a beautiful, beautiful waterfall. I absolutely love it. Now I'm closer to the water, which I really like. I like the way that the water coming down the bottom of the frame looks on the back of the camera. And I've set up really nice and low, kind of in front of where there's a bunch of boulders so that it gets a little bit of rapids, little ripples in the water as the water comes down and over the top of this rock here. I think it looks really good. Gives your eye something to focus on in the foreground, and then it leads you up into the waterfall. And then, of course, the brightest part of the composition is the sky. Kind of the same gig here. I'm bracketing about 2 stops. The reason 2 stops, which is a big jump, this sky is so blown out that in order to get enough detail, I need to go 2 stops below my metered exposure in order to get enough detail out to be usable in post-processing. I forgot my filter holder, so I'm just using my Lee landscape polarizer. I'm just holding it in front of the lens. It's kind of hokey, but it works. Same deal with the birds too. I'm trying to get some faster frames so that I can layer those in post as well. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful shot. So I set up the view camera with my 6x12 back, shooting in a vertical format. Just framing this waterfall plus the little bit of boulders in the foreground, some green grass, a little bit of the top cliff sides on the top, and then the water coming out the bottom of the frame. Now with 6x12 format, it's going to be a really tall, long, skinny composition. It's 1:2 aspect ratio, so it gives the effect of a panorama, but in this case it's vertical. Seems like it fits a subject kind of like a waterfall pretty well, because you can get the whole thing. I'm shooting with my 75mm Fujinon f5.6 lens, and that helped me frame all of the waterfall plus a little bit of the cliffs on the top. Some of the sky's in there too. Like I was saying on the digital images I shot just before this, the dynamic range is about 6 stops. A little more than I want to push color reversal slide film. So I loaded up a roll of Vector 100 and exposed 2 frames out of that. Not a whole lot more to it than that. I forgot my cable release, so I had to trigger the shutter manually. That sucks, but it worked out. It's fine. A little more of a pain to time it, but I did have to apply a little bit of front tilt, but not a whole lot because the camera's looking up, so I've already got a little bit of tilt in relation to my subject, that is. But that's about it. There's not a whole lot else that's different between this and the digital versions I shot, but it'll be interesting to see it, especially on 6x12. And Vector, I think, will do this scene pretty well, I hope. Now I think it's time to pack it up and get on out of here. I got another waterfall that I want to go visit before the end of the day, so it's kind of waterfall day, I think.
The first exposure turned out just fine. I would have preferred to have just a little more detail in the clouds, but those are the skies I was given, and even on my digital exposures I had to try pretty hard to recover that. It wasn't really an option to use my graduated ND either. Since I didn't have a straight horizon line, it would have made these rock formations in the top of the composition too dark. But regardless, I still like the composition. I think the foreground's interesting. I like the placement of the waterfall, and I was really happy with this image. Unfortunately, the second frame suffered from a double exposure. I was still getting used to the roll film back, and had forgotten to wind after taking that exposure. None of us are immune from making mistakes in the field, and this is just one of many reasons why I take doubles. I try not to compare my film and my digital images, as they were taken with 2 totally different processes, with different end goals in mind, but I am curious to hear your preference. So here's my edit, and as always, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below.
Skogafoss. As much as I would like to shoot everything in Iceland on film, this one's gonna be a real challenge because there's so many people. It's a really popular waterfall. It's probably one of the most iconic waterfalls in Iceland, if not the. So unless the crowd's thin out a little bit, come early or stay late or something like that, it's a little less people than when I first got here, but they kind of come in waves. There's a couple tour buses come through, it makes sense. So I gotta pick my battles a little bit. And I've taken a handful of shots on digital, just because I was able to kind of sneak in between crowds of people and kind of grab it and get out of there. But this was high on my list. This was something I wanted to hit really bad. The trick with this one though, is getting the shutter speed right. I'm not sure if I did or not. I was playing with a lot of different speeds because it's an epic waterfall. It's just so massive. It's just a sheet of water falling down. I'm trying to time the shutter right so that you don't get too much motion blur. I think it's important because there's a lot of really cool texture in this waterfall. So I was playing with a lot of different settings. I even took a telephoto shot with a 70 to 200 and just zoomed in and just filled the frame with this curtain water. I don't know if that turned out at all, but it was a fun experiment anyway. I'm inclined to try to shoot with foreground here with the black sand leading up into the base of the waterfall, but you can't really see where the water is landing very well anyway because there's so much water vapor. It's just a constant stream of mist and you get soaked when you get up close to the waterfall, which isn't really too good of a thing for the view camera, but be willing to put up with it if I think there's a shot. I've seen a couple things that'd be kind of fun, more of like a cropped in kind of panel look, and if not, then I think the digitals are just fine. Anyway, it really is just an epic place to be. It's absolutely amazing. It's getting a little later now and the crowds have kind of thinned out, so I'm back with a view camera. I've gone ahead and set up, with a little bit of patience I was able to catch a break in some of the people and get a couple of exposures taken. I finished off the roll of Ektar 100 and my shots were 1 second at f32. Might have actually preferred to go a little brighter for the shadows, but I was a little concerned about blowing out all the whites in the frame above it. I also don't have a cable release with me, so it's a little harder to time anything more than a second, since that's as far as the shutter goes. So I'm glad I got that in the bag. Something that was kind of high on my to-do list to do, and I'm glad to have done it. So now I think it's time to break this down and get it back in the van. It's getting pretty chilly out here with all the water vapor and the mist in the air blowing at you. So it's also getting later in the evening, so it's getting colder. Yeah, productive day. Happy with the work I've done so far.
These two exposures I was really happy with. And this was a major goal of mine for this trip, was to shoot this subject on film. Again, the sky is a little brighter than I might have preferred, but those are the conditions I was given, and it's just the way it is when you're shooting up at a waterfall with the sky in the background. And in truth, it doesn't really bother me that bad, although I may still experiment with a crop tool. But here's the edit, and as always, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below.
So as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, sure help me out if you hit that thumbs up button down below. That really helps channels like mine out. Maybe while you're down there, consider hitting that subscribe button if you want to see more videos from me, more from Iceland. We got a few of them coming up. Take care of yourself, and I'll catch you in the next video.